What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. This episode is going to be all about iOS and iPadOS 16 because ever since the Worldwide Developers Conference on Monday, I've been sifting through the software trying to find every little thing new. So once we discuss even more new changes in iOS 16 Beta 1, along with the bugs and battery life, we're going to discuss when to expect iOS 16 Beta 2 and an update on iOS 15. Then after discussing the software, we're going to talk about the new 14-inch iPad Pro that's coming soon, when to expect Apple's AR/VR headset, another AirTag Stalker, and more. And as always, if you guys want to stay updated with all things Apple, make sure to click that subscribe button down below so you don't miss next week's episode. All right, so let's start off with even more iOS 16 features and changes. I just dropped a video yesterday showing 25 plus additional features and changes in iOS 16, but we have about 20 more here today. I'm just finding a ton of changes in the software. So first up, I want to show you guys the continuity camera UI on the iPhone because I just realized I never really showed this. So this is the really slick UI that you get for continuity camera, which is the feature that allows you to use your iPhone as a webcam when you have macOS Ventura installed. And the cool thing about this is that it auto detects your phone and it makes a little noise and it gives you this prompt right here on your screen. And your phone connects even when it's on the lock screen. So this was like an alert that I got from the lock screen. So it started using my camera right away and I have to press on disconnect if I don't want to use the camera. But this interface here is really, really good looking. You have quite a few changes in the Maps application. So if you go to a place or a business, you can see a few changes up top there with those buttons. They're much more compact and easier to access, whereas before you'd have to scroll down to see the call, the website, guides, and things like that. Also, when you go to their website, you could see it now opens in an in-app browser within Maps, whereas before on iOS 15, if you pressed on website, it would take you into the Safari application. Also before it said rate and it had a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Now it says ratings with just a button to press on rate. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom to the details, you now have an edit button where you can report a specific item from this business. Whereas before there was no edit button, you just had this report an issue button right there. So now you can press on this and you could do it for the website, for example, and you could report an issue specific to the website. And then in the compact view, you could see you have the share sheet right there. And you also have these three dots right here where you now have the option to add photos or add to guide, whereas you could not do that from that menu on iOS 15. In Safari, we now have new controls when creating a strong password when you create a new account. So I'm trying to register for an account right here and you can see it says I made a strong password. Now if I tap on other options, I now have different options to choose. Whereas on iOS 15, it basically just said either use the strong password or choose my own password. But now we have different options for that, kind of randomized password. So we can choose my own password, we can edit the strong password, we could have it have no special characters, and also we have the option to have it easy to type. Now you guys know about the copying subject feature where we can basically go into our Photos application and pull a subject from the background, right? That's a cool feature. Well, did you know you could actually do it from Safari and other places as well? So if you tap and hold on the subject right there, you can see we get a new option in this contextual menu that says copy subject. When we tap on that, our subject is now copied. We can go into our notes here and we can paste it and take a look at that. It copies the subject even though it was just an image in Safari. It wasn't even saved to our camera roll. And speaking of that feature, we can also do that inside of the Files application. If you have to press on the image right here and go to Quick Actions, we have the Remove Background feature. So you can see it removes the background and it saves it as a separate file in Notes. So you can see right there, it does a pretty good job as well, especially for being so quick and not needing a third-party app. Now we know that the lock screen is awesome and you can customize so much, but did you guys know you could customize like what this data shows? Like for example, if I didn't want the weather to show from my location, like where I have it set in the weather application, I could change that straight from here. If I just tap on it, I could change the location or I can search for a location right there. And same with stocks. If I wanted to change like what stock was showing, I could just tap on it and choose what stock or search for one. And same with batteries. If you have multiple things connected, you could change which battery percentage shows up right there. Now we also have quite a few changes inside of settings. So if you go to our settings, general about, and tap on our iOS version, you can see this is the new UI for that section. I don't think it's very good at all. I think it's been much better in the past, and I'm sure Apple will change that, as they have a lot over time, but that is the new interface there. Now also, if you go back and go into software updates and then into automatic updates, we now have a new toggle here that says install system and data files. And it says updating to the latest version of iOS may include automatic updates to security configuration and system data files. Some updates may only take effect once you restart your iPhone. So basically it seems like Apple's going to be able to push security updates without having to do a full software update. And I'm sure we'll learn more about that as time goes on, but that is also new in iOS 16. Now, a pretty crazy new feature is if we go into our settings and go to our Apple ID section and then go to iCloud and then down to custom email domain, we could actually buy a domain straight from our iPhone's settings. Seriously, so if you go to custom email domain right here, you can see you get this pop up right here. So it says custom email addresses, buy or bring a domain, and share your domain. So if you tap on continue, you can see either if you want to buy a domain or use a domain you own. I'm going to try to buy one. So you can put in a domain and see if it's available. So I'll type in brandonbutch.io. I wonder if that's available. And brandonbutch.io is available and we can purchase it now for $33 per year. So if I tap on next, it will take me to Cloudflare and I'll be able to buy that domain, which is pretty neat. Another pretty cool change here in iOS 16 is inside of your Wi-Fi settings. So if you go into Wi-Fi and then tap on the I next to your network, you can see you have the option where it says password, or you have the section where it says password, and there's a hidden option in there because if you simply tap on that, it will show your password once you put in your Face ID or your password. So you can see there, that is the password to get into my network. Pretty neat, especially if you forget it. And then the last thing I'll show you in settings is inside of the cellular section and set up eSIM. If you go to set up an eSIM, you're now able to transfer. So if you go to other options here, you can now transfer your eSIM from another iPhone. So before it was limited to just using a QR code, but now you can just transfer it from another iPhone as long as Bluetooth is turned on and it's running iOS 16 or later. That's going to make setting up and transferring, especially to a new phone, so much easier. Also, I showed you guys that the Books widgets are new, but I didn't actually show them on my home screen. So here's what they look like. They look really good, actually. They're not updating because it's just a bug in beta 1. Even if you're reading a book, it doesn't really show anything here, but you can see this is the first size and here is the bigger size, and it shows today's readings with your daily reading goal right there, and it will show a preview of the book you're reading. So pretty neat. There are also quite a few changes inside of the Books application itself, especially when you change pages. You can see the animation there is different, and we do also have our different themes down here. In the Music application, if you go down to the Browse tab, you can see that everywhere where it used to say See All, we now just have this little arrow next to the title text right there. It makes it much easier to be able to go in and see more of that content, and that is throughout the Music application, not even just here on the Browse tab, it's also on Listen Now and everywhere else. You can see for recently played, we have the arrow instead of the See All text. Now we have a few changes in the weather application in iOS 16, but one that I just noticed today is how much smoother the precipitation map is. So you can see on the left is iOS 15, on the right is iOS 16. So not only does the bottom bar look much better, and we could also do a next hour forecast, not just a 12-hour forecast, but also look how smooth the animations for rain is on iOS 16 compared to iOS 15. It was very choppy. And then also in the forecast right here, if you tap on one of the days, you could see it will actually show you a graph of the temperature, and you could tap right here and you could actually see that graph for any of these variables. Like for instance, rainfall, you could see what it looks like right there. Also, when you go down to the air quality, you could see that before you could not tap on it, you had to click on see more, but now you could just simply tap on it. Also, you now get a map in this UI, whereas before it just showed you your score, your health information, and your primary pollutant. So now you get a little bit more information there, a little bit more visual. And then I just love how you can tap on any of these little squares here and see the graph for any of them. Like for instance, if I went to the sunset right here, you could see, I could see a graph for that. I could also see the averages for sunrise and sunset by month, which is pretty neat. Now, earlier this week, there was also a new beta released for the AirPods that improves automatic switching. And I have been testing this and I have noticed an improvement slightly, especially when I switch between my Mac and my iPhone, but we'll have to wait and see once that comes out of beta if it's going to get even better, because right now it's a very, very slight difference. I only knew it because I had a second pair of AirPods that I tested, but just know that a new beta for the AirPods is underway right now, and we should be getting a new firmware update for AirPods pretty soon. And then I did also want to mention the live activity section down here. So down at the bottom when we play like music, or Apple mentioned sports scores will show up down there. So if you lock your screen, you will see this section down here is called live activities. Now I've tried all week to get sports games to show up right there and kind of just get this to update constantly, like Apple demonstrated at the event, but I've not been able to get that to work. So I'm assuming that, nothing supports this feature yet, like ESPN or none of these sports applications. And I think that we're missing interactive widgets in iOS 16, but this could be our first preview of what that might look like in the future. So it may start out on the lock screen, and we may eventually see that come to the home screen, and that could be our version of interactive widgets. That's just my thinking right now, but of course we'll have to wait and see what Apple decides to do. And of course, I've already found a lot of other features and changes, but I will be saving those for future videos, so stay tuned. But anyways, let's move on to some of the bugs that I've been facing and you guys have been facing as well here on iOS 16 Beta 1. Now, I've had this one happen a couple of times. So you can see here it says that poster board closed unexpectedly, and that was when I was trying to edit the wallpaper. So this is the alert that I got basically telling me that it crashed, and it also gives me the prompt to share that straight from that pop-up, which I believe is new. I don't remember seeing that in iOS 15. So I'm having issues with the wallpaper section crashing. Also, the lock screen depth feature doesn't always work. So if I go into here and go to my wallpaper, and first off, you can see that when I change wallpapers, if I go ahead to my home screen, for instance, and I go ahead and try to change the wallpaper, let me go ahead and configure. Let me change it to something else. I'll just change it to this picture of my cat just for, just to prove this. And I tap on done. You can see if I tap on done again, it doesn't change the wallpaper in the preview. And I got another bug for you guys. If I tap on wallpapers right here, for whatever reason, it pulls up to add widgets, even though I'm just trying to tap on my wallpapers. There we go. Oh, okay, this is weird. Obviously, this section is so buggy because, of course, it is something brand new with iOS 16, but you guys can see quite a few bugs relating to that lock screen and also the home screen wallpaper section. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves so far with iOS 16 is the fact that I cannot disable a focus mode from my lock screen without going into the control center. So before, you would have your focus mode, the little icon right there where you could tap it and it will take you out of that focus mode. So you can see right here, iOS 15, I have the little button there. I could tap on that and I could take myself out of my focus mode very easily, but we don't have that toggle here on the lock screen in iOS 16. I don't know why. I think it's a bug because I don't think Apple would remove that, but the only way to get out of it is to go into your control center. It's just an extra step that you shouldn't have to take. I also had a bug when I was in my sleep focus mode where my lock screen just went black. It just stayed black, and my actual lock screen wallpaper, like this right here in the background, it never came back. It just stayed as a black wallpaper, and even when I rebooted the device, it stayed black. So just a lot of issues with that wallpaper. Now, I do also want to talk about Apple Music because Apple Music has been crashing quite a bit here in iOS 16 as well. Sometimes when I go to the, go to album button, like if I'm on here and I tap the three dots and then I go to album, or it's actually not there, it's right here. So go to album, when I tap on that, sometimes it would crash my music application. It didn't happen there. Also, other times I would get stuck on a song and it would just freeze up. And the only way to, play the song again or switch songs or do anything was to quit out of the music application. And then also sometimes the music widget would just not show the correct song that was currently playing. I have also seen other people have issues with widgets where one half would be black and the other half would be, their actual widget. So that was a bug I saw mostly in iPadOS 16, but it might be affecting iOS 16 users as well. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I changed my wallpaper from the Photos application because I have this whole album here called Wallpapers. So when I go to the share sheet here and go to use as wallpaper, you can see it tries to change the wallpaper for my lock screen and not my home screen. So I wish we would have the option. I'm pretty sure this is a bug. I wish we would have the option to select if we want it to be our lock screen or home screen wallpaper. Of course, I would hope, I would, imagine that it's supposed to default to the home screen, but it defaults to the lock screen. And then of course we have other bugs like just random stutters and app crashes and things like that. But if you guys have any other bugs, let me know down in the comment section below. I will also say that my phone is getting pretty hot right now, and that has been a constant theme with iOS 16 Beta 1. So I would consider that a bug as well, kind of a performance, deficiency as well. And speaking of performance really hasn't been that great. I mean, like I said, there's been lots of crashes, there's been stutter, especially when moving between applications, like when I'm going in and out of applications, there's a lot of stutter. I also noticed that apps do not stay open near as long as they did on iOS 15. So there does seem to be an issue with RAM management right now, and that's expected. Again, it is a beta 1, so you are expecting to see bugs like this. I'm also going to go ahead and run a Geekbench test just because I never did one on iOS 16 yet, just because the first 48 hours were pretty rough. I wanted to let everything kind of sit and kind of, index itself in the background. So now is a good time to run a Geekbench test to see what we score. All right, so we scored a 1733 and a 4662, which is pretty low. You can see how that compares to some of the iOS 15 numbers right there. Of course, it is expected to be a bit lower because performance is not near as good as it is on iOS 15. Now, as far as the battery life goes, battery life, it's very similar to the performance. It's not very good. I've tested this on multiple devices, including my iPad, and I find that the iPhone actually gets worse battery life than the iPad, which is the opposite of what it usually is on a first beta. So it's been pretty bad. Like I said, the first 48 hours were the worst, but I have, still seen a significant decrease from the last version of iOS 15 in terms of on-screen and off-screen time. Now, I do think the constant heating up does cause a great deal, for that battery drain. I think that's a big reason why the battery drains a lot, but the rest of the problems come from like the lock screen just not being optimized with all of this data that it's showing up there and, updating in real time. That plays a part of it. And of course, all the other crashes and apps relaunching a lot because of the RAM issue. All of those things kind of contribute to just very, very mediocre at best battery life. All right, so now let's talk about what is next for Apple. So let's talk about those future releases. And first up, iOS 16 Beta 2. So this is still going to be the developer beta. The public beta is not coming out until July. Keep that in mind. So we're probably going to be on Dev Beta 3 by the time we get public beta 1. So iOS 16 Developer Beta 2 is most likely coming on June 21st at the very earliest. I would expect it to come on the week of June 20th. Apple usually always skips at least 1 week when it comes to, a first beta of a major release. It's usually always at least, 10 to 14 days. So I would expect to see a release on the 21st at the earliest. Of course, it could also come later that week, or in a rare case, it could even come the week of the 27th, but I would not expect to see that next week. Now, next week, we should see iOS 15.6 Beta 3, likely on Tuesday, the 14th. And then we could also see a 15.5.1 to fix that nasty SIM card issue that we heard about with T-Mobile. And I think, honestly, that has to come next week, or it's just not coming at all, because I think we're going to get iOS 15.6 most likely on the last week of June, maybe the first week of July. And if 15.5.1 is going to come out at all, I think it has to come out next week. And then, like I mentioned, iOS 16 Public Beta 1 will most likely be out sometime in early July. I would say maybe the week of the 11th is a possibility. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. First up, let's talk about the next iPad Pro, because it is getting even bigger. According to two sources, including the highly accurate Ross Young, Apple is planning to release a 14.1-inch iPad Pro with a mini LED screen in early 2023, less than a year away. Majin Buu said this on Twitter: Apple is developing a new 14.1-inch iPad M2 with 512 gigabytes and 16 gigs of base memory. The new M2 line is expected to include a new 11-inch model with no major changes, a new 12.9-inch model with reduced bezels, and this new 14.1 iPad. Most likely it will be presented together with the AirPods in October or the November event. And then Ross Young said this: confirmed that the 14.1-inch iPad Pro is being developed with our supply chain sources. It will have many LEDs and ProMotion, not sure of timing, but early 2023 may be more likely. So we've been hearing about a larger iPad Pro really since last year from Mark Gurman, but now it seems that we're nearing a release date. So I cannot wait to see what the cost of a 14-inch iPad Pro, and especially if you pair that with the Magic Keyboard, I cannot wait to see what that price tag is going to look like. And speaking of the iPad Pro, it has a USB-C port, right? Well, now all Apple products might be getting one, and it might be happening sooner than we think. And that's because the European Union just recently reached an agreement to force iPhone and AirPods to adopt USB-C by 2024. Here's a quote from their press release: by autumn 2024, USB Type-C will become the common charging port for all mobile phones, tablets, and cameras in the EU. This law is a part of the broader EU effort to make products in the EU more sustainable, to reduce electronic waste, and to make consumers' lives easier. Under the new rules, consumers will no longer need a different charging device and cable every time they purchase a new device. Mobile phones, tablets, e-readers, earbuds, digital cameras, headphones, handheld video game consoles, and portable speakers that are rechargeable via a wired cable will have to be equipped with a USB Type-C port regardless of their manufacturer, which basically is aiming at Apple there. Laptops will also have to be adapted to the requirements by 40 months after the entry into force. So yeah, not much else needs to be said here. I'm happy that Apple is going to be forced to adopt USB-C for more than just the iPad now. Now let's talk about an upcoming Apple event where we could see Apple finally unveil their highly anticipated AR/VR headset. According to Ming-Chi Kuo, Apple plans to hold a special event in January 2023 to announce this mixed reality headset. He said this: "I believe Apple's mixed reality headset shipping date will be postponed until Q2 of 2023. Here's my prediction for the headset's schedule. EVT starting in Q3 of 2022, media event in January 2023, delivery of development toolkit within 2 to 4 weeks after the event, starting pre-orders in the second quarter of 2023, and then hitting store shelves before the Worldwide Developers Conference in 2023. So before June of 23 is when Kuo expects that. And that is super exciting to hear. And I think it makes sense why it was delayed because of those Shanghai lockdowns and also just how big of a product launch this is going to be. Apple wants to make sure everything is clear for such a massive product launch. And I think I'm most curious to see like the use case for this headset, because I think it's, gaming is too specific, and I think Apple would want more people than just gamers to be buying and using this headset. And also B, I wonder about the cost, because I know it's going to be very, very expensive given the multiple 8K displays that we heard are coming. So my guess is like $3,000 is going to be like the starting price of this headset. It will not be cheap. So I'm curious to see when that comes. And then finally, oh God, I hate how often I have to report on AirTags in these episodes these days, but a 27-year-old Miami police officer is accused of stalking his ex-girlfriend via AirTags. Yes, AirTags, plural, because he hid 2 of them in her car. And how did the ex-girlfriend find out they were in the car to begin with? Yes, you guessed it, the anti-stalking features that are built into the AirTags to prevent stalking. So she heard the sound that they make when they're moving, without the owner of the AirTag in the car, and that's when she took it to the police. According to the police report, detectives found the AirTag affixed to the undercarriage of her car, wrapped in heavy-duty tape inside the rear bumper. Subpoenas revealed that the recovered AirTag belonged to him and had been registered with his personal email. Just wow, no words. And he was fired, and he was also charged with misdemeanor stalking and illegal use of a tracking device. Tune in next week for another episode of AirTag stalking. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That is the latest batch of Apple news from this past week, along with some additional features and changes found in iOS 16 Beta 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe for more iOS 16 and more Apple Weekly coverage coming very, very soon. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.